Tammany Parish Zoning Commission meeting of May the 7th. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Martino. Seeger. Arsamont.
Here.
McInnes. Truxillo.
Here.
Doherty.
Here.
Walker.
Here.
Gaines.
Here.
Narcisse.
Here.
Troncoso.
Here.
Milligan.
Here.
Accardo. Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. All right. Announcements, please silence all phones and electronic devices. If you disagree with the decision this commission makes, you have the right to appeal it to the council. And there are appeal cards over on the railing to my right. Speaker cards, if you wish to speak on any item, you need to complete a speaker card, and they're on the railing to the right. Turn it in to some of the staff, and they'll get it up here to me. Public speaking, 10 minutes each side and 5 minutes for rebuttal. You're welcome to exit the building after your case is heard, but you're welcome to stay, whichever. Please rise for the invocation and the pledge.
Gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time together, Lord. We just come together, Lord, in your name. We just ask you to give us wisdom, to give us forethought, and to help us to guide this parish, Lord, to help us to do your will. And we ask that this evening, we ask you for just your grace and mercy upon us as we try to guide our parish to the best of our abilities. We ask all these things in Jesus' name.
Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, I think we're finally getting around to election of officers. We've got one that has asked to be vice chair again this year, and Tom's out right now. He'll be here next week. But Emily, what do I need to do? Do I need to just roll over Tom for this meeting?
Because this is a new term of office for the whole slate of planning and zoning commissioners, you all will need to elect both a new chairman, a new vice chair, and appoint a parliamentarian. So first we need to open the floor for nominations for chair. And after we close the floor, take a vote on the chairmanship, and then we can open the floor to vice chair. And Mr. Seeger can be nominated in his absence. Okay, that's the main thing right there. All right. Election of officers, I will open the floor for nominations, and I've talked to several of you as far as my nomination, so would someone like to make nomination?
For chair.
For chair. Ben Martino?
Yeah, I'd like to nominate Dave Doherty for chair of this board.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Chairman, I'll second.
Okay, second by Rob. Any other nominations? Close the floor to nominations. Please vote.
Motion to elect Dave Doherty as chair carries.
Thank you. Thank y'all. All right, Tom Seeger had been vice chair for several years, and I talked to Tom before he went out of town, and he would like to remain. Commissioner Truxillo,
I make a motion for Mr. Seeger to be vice chair.
motion by Mr. Truxillo for Tom to be vice chair. Robert,
I'd like to make a motion and nominate John Gaines,
for,
vice chairman.
okay. So we have two nominations for vice chair. Is there any other nominations? Mr. Narcisse,
I'll second for John Gaines.
okay. Any second for Tom? Okay, we're going to close the floor to nominations.
Take them in the order that they were nominated, so vote for Seeger first.
Okay. All right, we got a motion and a second on
Tom Seeger.
Tom Seeger,
No.
No,
so we need to vote, right, on that?
Tom Seeger's, the
Tom?
Robert's Rules of Order.
No, we
says
don't
you
have a
vote
second.
In order nomination.
there was no second for
There wasn't a second.
There was no second. There was no second for me.
Tom didn't have a
Oh, okay.
second.
Well, then,
Okay, so we just need to go to the second
For
for John
John Gaines.
Gaines. Okay? And we've got the second for John Gaines.
Yes.
Okay? Please vote.
Motion to appoint John Gaines as vice chair carries.
Okay?
Right. You're welcome.
I need a parliamentarian. Who would like to volunteer for parliamentarian? Rob?
You're gonna be me.
Do we? I need a parliamentarian, guys.
Karen Mercy.
You
Okay.
wanna do it?
Uh,
I'll do it.
Mr. Narcisse? You'll handle it?
I'll do it.
Okay.
If I'm nominated.
Well, that's an appointment.
Oh, well, if I'm appointed.
You are appointed. All right, so we've got that done. We'll get to play with that next week too. All right, approval of the April 2nd minutes is in your packet. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to read them. Do I have a motion and a second? Renee?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes as written.
Okay. We have a motion to accept the minutes as written. Does Martino? Okay. All right, we have a second on the minutes. Robert?
Yes, I'll second.
Okay, so we got 2 seconds on the minutes then. All right, please vote on the acceptance of the minutes as written.
Motion to accept the minutes as written carries.
Thank you. All right, Miss Helen, we got any, or Aaron, postponing the cases? He got you up.
Yes, we have a request to postpone for 2 months, number 8 on the agenda on page 3. 2024-3770, we have a request
Bless you.
to postpone until July 2nd, and Mr. Jeff Shane is here to address any questions you may have.
All right, let me read it into the record, Jeff, and then we'll recognize you. It's case 2024-3770-ZC. Existing zoning, there wasn't any zoning on it. Apparently, this was overlooked when we were going through the parish. Proposed zoning is HC2 Highway Commercial District location, partial located on the west side of Interstate 59 on the south side of Honey Island Swamp Road, Pearl River, Ward 6, District 9. It's 29.4559 acres. The petitioner is St. Tammany Parish Government. Owner is Amy Fisher Barber and Kelly R. Barber. Mr. Shane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening, Zoning Commission. My name's Jeff Shane. I'm with the Jones Fussell Law Firm in Covington at P.O. Box 1810. I have the pleasure of representing Mr. Kelly Barber, who is the owner of the property. As staff has noted and you have read, this property was left out of comprehensive rezoning in 2010 by oversight, so it literally bears no zone whatsoever. It has a history that it was zoned commercial in the past, and we now seek to have it zoned commercially. We appreciate Director Liner and the staff agreeing to initiate this zoning request. Initially, we had suggested HC2 as an appropriate zone, but we now have some potential uses that would require HC3 zoning. And because it was initially advertised as HC2, it has to be re-advertised in order for us to seek the HC3 zoning. So we understand those advertisements can be completed in the months of May and June, which would make the matter ripe for your consideration the first Tuesday in July, July 2. So hence the reason for the request and also the reason for the postponement. I would also like to ask if there's anyone in the audience this evening that's here for this case.
I don't see any hands going up or anybody standing, so we'll assume that there's no one here.
Good.
Okay?
We appreciate your consideration of the postponement, and we'll see you in July if you are so inclined. Thank you.
Okay.
And congratulations to the officers, the parliamentarian, and to those of you that are new commissioners that will be serving the public. I look forward, and my clients look forward to working with you.
All right. Thank you, Jeff. We need to have a motion. Mr. Narcisse. Motion to postpone to July the 2nd. Okay.
Postpone till July 2nd.
Okay. So, Mr. Gaines.
A second.
Second by Mr. Gaines. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Motion to postpone for 2 months to July 2nd carries.
All right. Thank you. Helen, we got any others?
Agenda, last case on the agenda, 2016-149 ZC. It's a major amendment to the Deer Cross Plan Unit Development Overlay. And there's a request to postpone until the June meeting. And Mr. Marone is here to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, let me read that one in. It's item 9. The case is 2016-149-ZC. A major amendment to Deer Crossing Plan Unit Development PUD subdivision located in the southwest intersection of Interstate 12 and Louisiana Highway 1085 across from Paraloo Road in Madisonville, Ward 1, District 4. It's 23.28 acres. The petitioner's Paul Marone. The owner's Deer Crossing LLC, Council District 4. Mr. Marone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. Paul Maroon on behalf of Deer Crossing LLC. This major amendment is before you to try to figure out how best to deal with what was originally approved as a no-cut right-of-way that got cleared by Entergy when they expropriated a servitude for that piece of the property. We are still working on trying to figure out what is a good, best resolution for that issue. We've been working with staff, with Ms. Kathy Seiden, the council person, and with Entergy themselves, and we just don't have a good resolution to bring to you yet this evening. We were hoping to hear back from Entergy by tonight, and we have heard back from one of the representatives, but we're still waiting on the other. So we don't have details to present to you on something for you to really consider tangible. So we would ask for another 30 days so that we have an opportunity to get that information back from Entergy, share that with staff and with Councilperson Seiden, so that when we do come to you in June, there'll be at least details there for you to consider at that point in time. And we need that 30 days to be able to do that. We appreciate your consideration and happy to answer any questions if you have them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Does anyone in the audience wish to speak either for or against on this, as far as postponing? Yes, sir. Now, this is going to be a postponement. You understand that?
No, I want to be clarified on it.
Pardon?
I don't understand. I know it's to have it next month, but what is the purpose of postponing it, or?
Well, there's the way the Energy and the owner and everyone is, they need more time to get everything straightened out. It's not straight as far as the records go and everything. Is that right, Paul? Or close to it?
So you can only speak as to the postponement, not to the actual merits of the case or the zoning application.
Okay, okay, so we'll agree to the postponement then.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, anyone else wish to speak for or against? I want to close it to the public and bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Narcisse.
Make a motion to postpone until the June meeting.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Narcisse to postpone to the June meeting. Commissioner Arsamont.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Arsamont. All right, Phil?
I'm good. I'm just second.
Okay, all right. We've got a motion and a second to postpone to the June meeting. Please vote.
The motion to postpone to the June meeting carries.
Thank you.
No other request.
All right, now we postponed the item 1 last month. It's on here as, I guess, to be handled.
This is from 2022. This is from last year. It was postponed in March of
2024.
This from March.
Let me get your mic on.
Just hear the case.
Yeah. It's
Pardon?
Hear the case. Call, go ahead and call.
Okay, all right. This is item 1 on the agenda. It's case 2022-3163-ZC. Existing case, or existing zoning is A4, single-family residential. Proposed zoning is HC2, highway commercial district. Location parcel located on the north side of Haas Road, on the west side of 3rd Street, on the south side of 2nd Avenue, and on the east side of the unopened right-of-way of 4th Street. Slide L, Ward 8, District 14. It's 1.544 acres. The petitioner's Chris Palms, and the owner is Palms Seafood LLC, Chris Palms. Staff?
1.544 acre property.
Wait a minute, Ellen. You need to get her mic on.
Can you press your mic?
Okay.
The 1.544 acre property consists of 13 vacant lots within the Alton subdivision. Per the petitioner's application, the request of the zoning change is to be able to obtain a building permit to construct a commercial trucking company on the site. If approved for the rezoning, the applicant will have to comply with all landscaping, drainage, signage, and other parish requirements.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Palms here? Okay. Come to the mic, sir.
his name and address.
How you doing?
It's on here.
Well, he has to state it. He has to state it. His name and address.
Okay. You need to state your name and address.
My name is Chris Pomez. I live at 42090 Downey Road, Slidell.
Okay. What do you want to tell us?
I'm looking to do a zone change to commercial to
Okay.
build my trucking company.
All right.
I'm located on the water, so every time we get a hurricane or high water, I always get put out of business. So I found that piece. And they got a business across the street and a business on the left side by 4th Street. So I'm seeking to see if we can change it to commercial.
Okay. And you want to go to HC2, which is commercial, but,
Yes.
okay. What type trucks are you going to be?
I'm in a seafood business. I run my own seafood to up and down the East Coast to Baltimore. I have a warehouse in Baltimore, so I run back and forth.
Okay, so these are basically small trucks, or?
No, I mean, I run tractor trailers, but I mean, it's only 1 or 2, 3 days a week.
Okay,
So it's not a big company at all.
okay. Ellen, is that going to fall into the HC2, or does he need to go to 3?
Your trucks are stored inside?
No,
Okay.
they outside.
The HC2 does not allow for an outdoor storage yard. So,
Well, no, I was gonna build a building facility where the ramps, you back up to the ramp and you do all your business inside.
okay,
It's
Okay.
not outside.
okay.
So HC2 is still acceptable?
Should be, I mean, if all the business is done inside, I
Yep.
mean, you cannot have an outdoor storage yard with vehicles and trailers.
No. I'm like Amazon, closed up inside.
All right. All right, thank you, sir. Let's see if anybody else wants to speak either in favor or against on this. Seeing no one, I will close it to the public and bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Arsamont.
I move that we accept and approve this change.
All right, we have a motion to accept. Do I have a second? Commissioner Truxillo.
Second.
Second, okay. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Motion to approve carries.
Thank you. All right, we go to item 2. The case is 2024-3737-ZC. Existing zoning is A2 Suburban District. Proposed zoning is A3 Suburban District. Location, parcel located on the north east corner of Maple Street and Oscar Street, being 65398 Maple Street, Mandeville, Ward 4, District 7. It's 1.74 acres. The petitioner is Carolyn DeLotte, and the owner is Carolyn DeLotte, Council District 7. Staff?
The petitioner is requesting to change the zoning from A2 Suburban District to A3 Suburban District. The property is currently 1.74 acres. The A2 Suburban District allows for 1 unit per acre, and the A3 Suburban District allows for 2 units per acre. If the request to A3 is approved, the applicant could apply to do the following, which would be to place another single-family residential dwelling on the site, or apply for minor subdivision to create 2 parcels. For the petitioner's application, the intent for the requested zoning change would be to create 2 parcels under the A3 Suburban Zoning District.
Okay. Thank you. And good evening. You are?
I'm Carolyn DeLatte.
Okay.
I live at 65398 Maple Street in the Pineview Heights subdivision. That's off 1088. And my property is 200 by 300. My husband recently passed away, and it's just too much for me.
Okay.
So I'd like to make it available for my daughters or my grandchildren, but it's just too much for me.
Okay. All right. Let's see if anybody else in the audience wants to speak on this, either for or against. Does anyone wish to speak on this? I'm going to close it to the public and bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Gaines.
Ma'am,
And ma'am, if you could just stay at the microphone, I just have it looks like one of your lot there is one of the larger in the subdivision. Is
It
that
is.
correct? So that's why, but you're just a hair under just being able to do just the division on its own, right?
Yes, I'd like to make it, like, I guess being the 200, go ahead and make it the 100 by 300.
I see.
We have a lot of small lots in
Yeah.
that subdivision, and there are some really nice houses on there. And, you know, I just don't mind. I mean, I hope no one else finds a nice house on a, but it's a nice area.
I understand. I have a question for staff. So this would be the only A3 house in this area, though, other than what's contained inside the PUD, correct?
Yes, correct. It will be the only A3 in the surrounding area. There's no PUD around it, but it's a subdivision that's currently zone A2
So
suburban.
would the new zoning allow for more than another single-family home to be placed on the property?
Yes, they could either build another house on the property or subdivide the property and have one house on one parcel and another house on another parcel.
Could she go with a A2 subdivision with a waiver and still divide it into 2 lots?
No, sir.
That's not possible?
No, sir.
So A3 is the only zoning that it could fit into to do what she wants to do?
That's correct.
Okay, with that, I make a motion to approve.
Okay. We have a motion by Commissioner Gaines to approve. Commissioner Narcisse.
All my questions were answered there. I'm going to second that motion.
Okay, second by Commissioner Narcisse. Commissioner Troncoso.
The PUD that's in the back, it butts up, it's contiguous to the property in the rear, is zoned A3. Is that correct?
That's correct. But
So
this
it butts
parcel
up
is not
against
part of the
A3.
PUD.
Yeah, it's just not contained inside.
Yeah, I don't know. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. What did I do? Okay, there's no further questions from staff on this, so let's call for the vote. Please vote.
Motion to approve carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. And if you need to have any questions answered, you're welcome to call staff during the week, and if your family has questions, same thing for them, call staff. Okay? All right. We go to item 3 on page 2. This is case 2024-3746 ZC. Existing zoning is A1, suburban district, RO rural overlay, and MHO manufactured housing overlay. Proposed zoning is A1A suburban district, RO rural overlay, and MHO manufactured housing overlay. Parcel located at the end of Fauntleroy Road, west of Louisiana Highway 1083, being 24093 Fauntleroy Road, Bush. It's Ward 5, District 6. It's 6.738 acres. Petitioner is Madeline Hughes, and the owner is Melissa Hughes, Council District 6. Staff?
The petitioner is requesting to change the zoning classification from A1 suburban district, RO rural overlay, and MHO manufactured housing overlay to A1A suburban district, rural overlay, and manufactured housing overlay. Currently, the A1 suburban district allows for one house or one unit per 5 acres, and the A1A allows for 1 unit per 3 acres. If approved to A1A, the applicant could either apply for minor subdivision to create 2 parcels of a minimum of 3 acres, or apply for a building permit to place another dwelling unit on the existing property. Per the petitioner's application, the request is to apply for a building permit to place a manufactured home on the site in addition to the existing single-family residence located on the property.
Okay, thank you. Is Melissa or Madeline Hughes here? I need one of you to the microphone. Good evening.
I'm Madeline Hughes, and I live at 24093 Fauntleroy Road. And I am looking to add a home to the property. My parents own this property, and I'm just wanting to be able to have a home here as well.
Okay. All right. Let's see if anybody in the audience wishes to speak either for or against. Seeing no one, I'll close it to the public and bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Gaines.
I make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Gaines to approve. Commissioner Armstrong.
I do second.
Second by Commissioner Armstrong. Any further discussion? Please vote.
It's pretty cut and dry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to approve carries.
John, clear your. Okay. I can do it, but it works better if y'all do it. Yeah. Okay. All right, we go to item 4. Case is 2024-3757-ZC. Existing zoning is A1 Suburban District. Proposed zoning is A1 Suburban District and RO Rural Overlay. Parcel located on the northwest corner of Boyd Road and Morgan Road, being 13001 Boyd Road, Covington, Ward 1, District 3. It's 1.15 acres. The petitioner is Emil and Colleen Bro. The owner is Emil and Colleen Bro. It's Council District 3. Staff?
The petitioner is requesting to change the zoning from A1 Suburban District to A1 Suburban District and Rural Overlay. For the petitioner's application, the reason for the request is to remove the existing manufactured home from the property and apply for a building permit to place an agricultural building on a site without the presence of a main residence.
Okay. And you are?
Yes, sir. My name is Emil Bro, and I currently live at 204 Inglewood Terrace in Covington.
Okay. Anything you want to add to the staff report?
No, so she described it. We acquired this property in November of last year with the intention of putting a garage structure. I have envisioned a metal building on a slab of a barn style, higher in the middle with 2 awnings. I learned later that because of the zoning, you couldn't put the accessory building without the primary residence, so this is the solution that Ms. Cook was able to refer us to pursue. So I'm requesting that you consider that this evening.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. Anyone in the audience wish to speak in favor? I have a card from Ashley Henley that wishes to speak against. Ms. Henley? Pardon?
It's a different item.
Not for this case.
Which number did you want to speak on? Number 5?
Next one.
Okay. All right, so no one wishes to speak against on that item. I will close it to the public and bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Arsamont.
I would like to make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Arsamont to approve. Commissioner Martina.
Yeah, if you could approach the mic, sir.
Pardon? Oh,
So with your metal building, what are you storing on the property?
Plan to store a camper trailer inside in a boat. And it's going to be my man cave for a while.
How far is your permanent residence now from the property?
15 minutes. I'm in Terabella, and so this is it's about 15 minutes away.
And you're confident there's going to be adequate security with no one living on the premises if you have these vehicles or whatnot?
Well, I fully intend to apply for permits to do electricity. There's no utilities there, so I'm going to put in a well and a septic system. So we'll apply for permits to do all of that when we put the accessory building in. I've already worked with Kelly McHugh's office. We've got the survey done. We know where the primary residence would go in the future should we choose to build there. So the goal was to have all that in place such that when and if we decide to build there, we would have all that ready. But I don't have any concerns about security in the area. It seems like a pretty calm and rural area. I met a few of the neighbors. They all seem to be very, very kind and very aware of what's going on in the area. So I'm not concerned at all about that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Narcisse.
My question is for staff as far as the rural overlay. Is that the only way to do it? Because I don't see the agricultural purpose. I mean, is that just how we're fitting this particular building in?
That's correct. If there's no main residence on a property, then the only way to be able to build an accessory building, which in this case is barn style for personal storage, and for the most part, most people keep equipment to maintain the property as well. So
Gotcha. So it's standard procedure just to do it this way?
correct.
Okay.
Okay,
James, there's a second to the motion.
all right.
Yeah, with that said, I'll second.
You second? Okay. Good deal. All right, there's no one else in the queue, so please vote.
Motion to approve carries.
All right, the next item is item 5. It's 2024-3759-ZC. Existing zoning is I-1 Industrial District and HC2 Highway Commercial District. Proposed zoning is A7 Multifamily Residential District. Location, parcel located on the west side of Louisiana Highway 25, south of Laborde Parkway, Covington, Ward 3, District 3. It's 8.62 acres. The petitioner's CST Land Developers, LLC. Tom Delahaye is the owner. RJL Investments is the owner, excuse me. Council District 3. Staff?
The subject property is actually split zoned. 4.47 acres to the rear is zoned I-1 Industrial, and 4.15 acres along Highway 25 is zoned HC2 Highway Commercial District. In 2022, at the request of the administration, the St. Tammany Parish Council imposed a 3-month moratorium on the receipts of submissions by the Zoning Commission for the rezoning of property that would result in the increase of allowable density of a residentially zoned parcel greater than A4. So that would stop anyone from applying for A4A, A6, A7, A8, any PUDs, and any T&Ds. On March 7th, 2024, the St. Tammany Parish Council vacated the subject property from that moratorium, and they subsequently submitted an application to rezone this property to A7, which is multifamily. No justification was provided by the Parish Council as to why this property was released, and staff has determined that the request by the petitioner contradicts the intent of the parish-wide moratorium. The subject property is surrounded by a variety of uses, including undeveloped property, residential uses, and commercial districts, as well as a variety of zoning classifications that includes Covington City Limits, HC2 Highway Commercial District, and I-1 Industrial District. The general development pattern in the direct vicinity of the site is commercial and industrial. The subject property has been cleared since at least 2004 and is currently undeveloped. And per the legal description provided by the applicant, the property does not have direct road frontage along Highway 25. So if it was ever developed, it would need to be accessed from a servitude of passage, or the owner would submit an application for a minor subdivision. Additionally, the site is within the Covington Corridor sub-area plan. There were several sub-area plans adopted as part of the 2024 comprehensive plan. The purpose behind this particular sub-area plan is denoted in your staff report, and it reads, many parts of our parish are expected to change quickly in the next 20 years. and require more careful planning. These include areas with high market demands for residential, commercial, and manufacturing and logistics, critical and sensitive environmental resources, underdeveloped transportation, drainage, and wastewater infrastructure, and additional land use and transportation planning beyond the scope of the new direction should include close consultation with property owners, residents and businesses, elected officials, and state and local institutions and government agencies, collection of the best ecological data, and development scenario consideration.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Morone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. Paul Marone on behalf of the petitioner this evening. This property, as Ms. Cook noted, and as you'll see in your staff reports, 8.62 acres. It's located along the west side of Highway 25, just north of Regina Chelley Road. And also, as Ms. Cook noted, it's currently zoned I-1 and HC2. So we have fairly intense industrial and commercial zones on the property, and we are requesting A7 multifamily. The intent is on the property to be rezoned to have 110 unit multifamily development. A few comments and points of information I'd like to share with you this evening. First, I would like to address the staff comments and the reference to the moratorium. I think it's important to note that moratorium was dated 2022. That was a 3-month moratorium. We are now in the middle of 2024, and that moratorium is still in place. But what has happened over that time frame is there have been a number of properties that have been released from the moratorium because there was a belief by the council that there should be an opportunity at least to make the request and to seek a rezoning. And that's what happened in this case. The moratorium was lifted so that the opportunity at least would be there to try to bring this property into commerce. So I ask that you consider that this evening. It has always been a challenge to find appropriate places and properties in St. Tammany Parish for multifamily. We have seen that on the east side, we've seen it on the west side. It's always been a challenge. One thing that's been clear, at least to me, in my watching of this over the years, is that we do not want, and there has been great resistance to having multifamily sites that are in or adjacent to most single-family residential. The idea has been, look, we don't want that right next door to single-family residential. So when we chose this site and pursued this rezoning, we had that in mind. And so as you'll see, this site is surrounded by I-2 and HC2. We do not abut any residentially zoned property on any side of this property. Now the property has already been cleared since 2004 according to Ms. Cook's research, and that's, from my recollection, that's about right. So it's not a situation where we'll be removing trees. The property is not in a floodplain. And there are other apartments and affordable housing in the vicinity and just to our south. And then finally, our access is solely off of a state highway. Why does that matter? Well, another issue we have is that in many instances, we don't want to have multifamily sites that are burdening or directly accessing off of local or parish roads. So that is not the instance here. We are accessing solely off of Highway 25. We have been careful in our request in that we did not rezone or not proposing to rezone all the way to the highway. You'll see it's sketched out in your staff report. There remains along Highway 25 about a 200-foot depth that is HC2. And the intent there was to continue to have the streetscape as you travel Highway 25. So you see businesses. And the idea was not to put a multifamily development up against the highway. So as the property is developed out, you will still have an HC2 zoned property and an HC2 use along Highway 25 that will block the visibility to some extent of what we're proposing and also keep that streetscape as it is presently. It's important to note that of the property being zoned, your ordinances require that the entire parcel be fenced, which of course it will. I believe a 6-foot fence is required. We certainly would do that. We're even open to an 8-foot fence. It will be a gated facility, and it will have security cameras so that we can assure the safety of our residents and everybody that is surrounding us. With this property, you can get about 5 buildings and 1 clubhouse. In addition to the clubhouse, the amenities that you would have at this development would be a dog park, swimming pool, basketball court, and a barbecue area. So we're not talking about a low-end development. We are talking about a quality development. I have passed around to you a package that shows and illustrates another project very similar to this one developed by this developer to give you just a flavor of what type of development we're talking about. What would be constructed on this property if in fact it were approved this evening. And so as you'll see, at least in my view, a very nice, very quality development. The interiors of the units, as you'll see there, granite countertops, stainless steel appliances, simulated wood floors, all very nice, quality construction and a quality area. You know, oftentimes, as I said, it is difficult to find the appropriate location. I would submit to you respectfully that we need more affordable housing, workforce housing opportunities in Western St. Tammany Parish. We believe this particular development in this location is a fit. And let me explain why I'm going to say that to you, because some of you may look at me and say, well, Paul, I don't really follow that. If you look closely at what is surrounding this property and what is constructed and what is zoned, there is a mix. What do I mean by that? If you look to our north, it's I-1. On the north side of that I-1 is A4 single-family residential. If you looked to our west, it's I-1 next to us. On the other side of that I-1 is in the city of Covington, but is A4 residential before it was annexed in, single-family residential. If you look to our south, it's I-1, but on the other side of that, you have Reagan's Crossing, which is another multifamily development. You also have existing high-density single-family residential rental properties there. So you have a mix from I-1, HC2, multifamily residential, and single-family residential, all in this area. What we are proposing, respectfully, in my view, is not at all inconsistent with that. In fact, it is consistent with that. Our use is already there. It's just to our south. And we have nestled it in a place where we don't abut any residential at all, which can be very difficult to do. It is our belief that this is a good location for this. We know it's a challenge to find the right location, but we believe that this is it for the reasons that I've stated. We appreciate your consideration this evening, and when the time is appropriate, I'll be happy to answer any questions that any of the commissioners might have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak in favor? All right, I've got 2 cards here. The folks wish to speak against. Ashley Henley. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Ashley Henley. My address is 18184 Pheasant Lane in Covington, Louisiana. I kindly and respectfully request you vote against the proposed zoning change requested by CST Land Developers LLC / RJL Investments LLC. The subject parcel of land is located along the west side of LA Highway 25, as you just heard, and is intended to be developed for multifamily housing. I'm opposed to this zoning change and ultimately the new multifamily housing development. The already extremely congested traffic along Highway 190, Collins Boulevard, and Highway 25 will only worsen should this development be allowed to proceed. I live off of Airport Road. Pheasant Lane is right off of Airport Road, which is comes out right at Highway 25, and it is a nightmare in the mornings to take a left to go towards town. Furthermore, it's a nightmare to even get out on the road, but traffic from the bridge to right there at Airport Road is tremendous. I'm not even going to talk about coming home in the afternoons from right off of Causeway Boulevard, just straight shot. So I'm just imagining, you know, I believe around 100 units, so multiply that by 2 at least, you know, 200 more cars on the road. So thank you for your time.
Okay, you'll have the opportunity to rebut anything Mr. Morone would add to his statement.
Sure.
Okay?
Thank you.
All right, and Elway Stone Pick? That's probably not right either.
No.
Good evening to you.
That's all right. My name is Lindy Stonecipher, and I live just slightly north of this proposed development on Bamoka Road. And I agree with a lot of the things that Mr. Morone said. Yes, we need more residential, affordable residences for our educators, our policemen, our firefighters. But the reason that we had the whole campaign 2040 was because St. Tammany was growing at a pace without considering infrastructure. And as Ms. Henley said, Highway 25 is a nightmare, and I know Ms. Casaban has to drive that as well, so I'm surprised that she would have done the where she vacated the property from the moratorium, which has evidently been renewed, or there would be no moratorium by the parish council. But as the parish staff have stated in their report, it doesn't meet with any of the requirement or the intent of the moratorium and growing without giving cause to infrastructure. And we can see how long the Department of Transportation and Development they take to get things to grow on state highways. So yeah, we don't want to make our state highways overburdened any more than our parish highways. But the state moves a lot slower than the parish does. And for as long as I can remember, over 20 years, the state was going to develop Collins Boulevard, and it is just now happening. And it's going to be a very long time before that development, just the road infrastructure, not to mention any other type of infrastructure, but just the road infrastructure to make it all the way up to that point. And if there's nothing in the plan to increase Highway 25 at that point, are the builders or the developers going to add 2 lanes to make it a 4-lane highway from there all the way to the Highway 25 190 bypass intersection? I just don't see how it can work. It's really not. It's not the best place for the development. Yes, there's no residential. I don't disagree with many of the things that Mr. Morone said. I just am concerned that the moratorium was released for this one property with possibly no public notification. I don't really know how those work or how that happened back in March. I thought that the wording in the parish staff's report was unusual, and that it said that there was no reason given for the release of the property. I don't really know what that means. I'm not totally sure how the government works as far as that, how a council member can actually enter a resolution and have it passed and have no public input. Kind of sounds like some other similar situations in the parish, but I'm not going there. I request respectfully that you see the side that the parish staff have put forth. They have nothing positive. I looked at a lot of the other items on the agenda, and they have it's consistent with and it's not consistent with. Well, with this particular agenda item, there is no consistent with. It's not consistent with. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, anyone else wish to speak against? I don't have any other cards, so I'm gonna go to rebuttal. Mr. Morone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. I certainly appreciate and respect Ms. Henley and Ms. Stone-Cipher's comments. I guess a few points with regards to them. I think both mentioned traffic and a legitimate concern, of course. I don't think there's anybody that lives in St. Tammany Parish or drives through St. Tammany Parish that doesn't have some concerns about the traffic. That's well stated. But let's step back a minute. There are some considerations that I would like to bring to your attention. We have often said that there should be some infrastructure going in before some of these projects were done. Well, it may not be a perfect fix, and it's not going to fix everything, but the bridge is under construction. The improvements of Collins Boulevard are under construction. There is a roundabout that is slated to be constructed at Lee Road, which will help this corridor. There is another roundabout that is going to be at 25 and Ronald Reagan Highway. I don't know when that's going to be done. I'm not suggesting that that's going to be done tomorrow. But those other improvements have broken ground. And it's not often that I can stand up here and say, well, we've got some improvements that are going to help, not going to fix the problem, but are going to help the area. And we do have it in this instance. I would also point out that with those improvements ongoing, the timing of the project is important, because if everything went perfect for us, if we were to get all of the approvals that we needed, if we had a product that was finished within 2 years, then we would be doing very well. That would be an aggressive time frame. So at a minimum, we're talking about 2 years to help some of these projects that are along the way get to their conclusion. With regards to this site specifically, we know that before we could ever pull a building permit, regardless of anything else, we would have to satisfy the parish traffic requirements and DOTD's traffic requirements, which means there would have to be a traffic study done that would dictate what other improvements, if any, we might be required to make. Now, I was involved in a project a little further north along Highway 25 where we had to put turning lanes on 25, we had to put a turning lane on a side road, and we had to put an acceleration lane as well. All of those were project specific, so we had to build and fund those, and that would be the same thing here. If traffic improvements are required at this particular location, then it would be incumbent upon us to put them in at our cost to make sure that we can meet the requirements that the state and the parish have with regards to traffic. I would also point out with regards to traffic and the other impacts that, remember, we're talking about 8.62 acres, most of which, or much of which, is I-1 today. The rest of it is HC2. So if this project doesn't happen, then it doesn't mean that there are no impacts, right? I mean, you still have impacts from the industrial traffic that would go there. You still have the impacts from the highway commercial projects that would go there. So there is going to be some impacts. We are simply trading the industrial traffic impact and the highway commercial impact for the residential impact. And we're going to do that in a manner that meets all of your requirements, or we simply can't build it. Again, I certainly respect and appreciate the comments that were made. I would say with regards to the moratorium, I would point to you again, if you go back and look at the agendas for the council for the last 2 years, you will see that it is regularly at a public hearing where certain parcels are removed from the moratorium. That's all that happened here. It is very hard to find an appropriate location for a multifamily project in western St. Tammany. I would submit to you, there is no perfect location. I wish I could find one that everybody agreed on. But after 25 years, I haven't found that piece yet. I think the mix in this location is reasonable, and this is an appropriate use given what is around it. Not just right next door, but even right next door to that, it seems to fit. And I urge you to consider that this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. All right, Mrs. Henley?
I'll make this brief.
You got 5 minutes.
Sure, yeah, no, I won't take that long. I think the mix is suitable, and I think what's already there, as he alluded to, with regard to industrial, commercial, etc., the amount of traffic that is going to put on the roads compared to, I'm thinking at least around 200 vehicles added to specifically that location that is already awful, combined with construction, yes, that is going on at the bridge, but that it has not even started down Collins. I mean, in any kind of substantial way. We're talking years for that to be completed. Again, going back to infrastructure and the lack thereof, and maybe some poor planning, you know, not having it in place prior to development. So kind of all of those factors I just wanted to touch back upon, maybe re-emphasize. And that is all. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. And the other lady, I forgot your name.
Lindy Stonecipher. Again, like Ms. Henley said, you know, you're going to put 200 cars at least on the road with 110 unit development, in addition to any commercial pieces that go in the front. Now, granted, those commercial properties could be there even as the property is zoned right now, so that, I guess that really wouldn't play into it. But it will add just a tremendous amount of traffic at this point in time, in 2 years, I guess, is according to Mr. Marone, is how long it would take, is 2 years for development. I can't see, I don't know how long the Department of Transportation is going to take on that development, but I don't think 2 years is going to, maybe, hopefully my lifetime. But anyway, thank y'all. And I do, again, I hope that you vote to deny this. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we've had rebuttal on both sides. I'm going to close the floor to the public and bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Gaines.
I have a couple of comments on just to the residents that came here. There is zero we can do about traffic on a state highway, and you guys know that. So we've been waiting. I've been living a resident of Folsom for all my life, and we've been waiting for that bridge for 50 years. So not 20, 50. So, and it probably will take a long time for that development to continue on down Collins towards Highway 190. With respect to the other developments that Ms. Marone pointed out, Reagan Crossing has access via Highway 190. It's not directly on Highway 25, which when traffic is flowing in that area, people are driving 60, 65 miles an hour. So my concern is that, you know, that putting a large residence inside of this industrial zone, what type of street improvements would have to be made, and what impacts are those going to have on the surrounding industrial zoning? You know, when they do finish the construction and bring the roundabouts and that development closer to this area, I expect this area to be impacted heavily and the remaining open industrial portion to be developed. So do we want to develop an industrial area around an existing residential area? I disagree with Mr. Marone that we don't want to put multifamily dwelling again next to residential. That's almost all that I see in the parish is multifamily next to residential. True, we've been against multifamily for the last 2 years of any kind, but I don't think that putting it inside of a industrial area is the appropriate place for it. I think, closer to the interstate where we can mitigate some of these traffic concerns,
is probably a more appropriate area for that to be located. With that, I make a motion to deny.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Gaines to deny. Commissioner Narcisse.
My question goes to access to the property. I'm assuming there's going to be a subdivision at some point down the line?
Say again.
I'm assuming there's going to be a subdivision of the front portion on Highway 25, and the back portion is your development there?
Yes, that would be the intent, that there would be an access road probably along the north side of the property that would access the rear. And so there would be a subdivision so that there would be a flag lot, if you will, that would connect to the front, and then the rest of the frontage would remain in its HC2 zone.
Driving that area, the traffic is a real concern. Mr. Gaines is more familiar with the area than I am. I'm going to go ahead and second his motion to deny.
Okay, we have a second to deny. Commissioner Troncoso.
I have questions regarding infrastructure. Paul, are the utilities there in line? What is the status of the utilities?
Good question. There are no central utilities in that location other than the city of Covington that is to the south a little ways. We approached the city of Covington about being able to tie in, but they were not willing to allow us to do that. So we'll have to drill our own well with the capabilities to handle this site, as well as the fire suppression that would be needed, which will be significant, and we'll have to have our own treatment for the sewer system.
Based off of the information I have, its effective flood zone is C, so there isn't any drainage or flooding issues.
Not to my knowledge. We're not aware of any flooding issues there at all.
Aaron or Helen or someone, if you can verify that flood zone C is in an acute problem with drainage or flooding. Is that correct? Based on my knowledge of the flood map, I believe C is not a flood area.
That's correct. I was waiting for you to finish your statement. Yes, sir.
Okay. So I guess the question in my mind is if not there, where? And you mentioned the interstate. Yeah, I see that as well. The nature of the road, and I'm very familiar with it, traveling River Road and St. Joseph Abbey, etc. And the traffic can get very, well, it's moving at a quick pace, for sure. But it's not heavily industrial. And there is residential in the area. So frankly, I don't see the need. I'm not against having it there. I don't see the real reason. If it's traffic, that is something that we really can't control, to Mr. Gaines' point. But I would rather see a nice development like is proposed versus an additional industrial development. So I would hope that we would move this forward. I'm not crazy about multifamily, generally speaking. You know, it needs to be in an appropriate area, and I don't see this as an area that wouldn't be appropriate. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay, Commissioner Truxillo.
I'm a little confused. This is for staff. What I thought I heard, and of course I could have heard it wrong because hearing sometimes goes out. The moratorium, is it in effect right now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. And is there access to 25 directly or not?
This site does not directly abut Highway 25.
Okay, and has other properties been called out to avert the moratorium that you're aware of?
In the future of the moratorium, yes, sir.
Okay.
And I want to clarify my statement. I believe this site, and Paul can probably speak to that, does in fact abut 25, but the petition rezoning and the property that was removed from the moratorium does not. So the applicant provided a legal description that does not abut Highway 25.
Oh, that's why I was confused. You know, one said one thing, one said the other thing. So I just need to get that clarified.
May I respond to the question? To try
Sure.
to clarify that? Okay. So, yes, the property, the entirety of the property, which right now has split zones, HC2 in the front, I1 in the back, fronts Highway 25 and has access to the highway. We have only asked to rezone the back part, so 200 feet off, but we control and have full access directly to Highway 25. We're just choosing not to try to rezone the highway commercial along the front.
So how will your residents access the apartments?
Right over the property that we still own that is fronts Highway 25.
From 25?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Then Martino.
Yeah, so this property to me seems awfully narrow. I think you mentioned 5 buildings, correct? Plus a recreational area. Really, my comments are more with the size and the shape of this property, but also being surrounded by other commercially used farmland, other agriculture uses. I would agree that there's no perfect area, there's no perfect property, but just from the descriptions of the land survey done, the square footage, but also just the depth and the length of this property, I would, in my opinion, say this is not appropriate for 5 buildings plus recreational use. With the comments of 200 cars, does this property mandate 2 parking places per unit? So do we know if that, and that's a question, do we know if this, it was 110 units, how many parking places would be developed for those?
Two per unit. And we have a site plan that lays that out, but it is long and narrow. But we do have the ability to get the required parking spaces that we need at two per unit.
I'm also against this rezoning. I have no further comments.
Okay, Commissioner Arsalan.
Yeah, Mr. Paul. Mine's just on the quality of the development. So what is the value, what is going to be the cost of each one of these? Are these going to be rentals?
These will be rentals.
Okay, and so
That's correct.
what is the typical rental that you are there looking at for that?
That I don't, I do not know the answer to that at
Okay.
this point. Until we get, it's a little bit hard to peg that until we know what our final cost is going to be, which we're still preliminary on that.
Because it doesn't matter on the affordability, and so
Yes,
I was just
yes.
curious on who
Yes.
would actually be housing in there. That's all.
It is definitely geared toward workforce housing, teachers, first responders,
Okay.
police, firefighters. That is the target market for it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Paul.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Commissioner Gaines.
Yes, legal has requested that I amend my motion to a motion of approval instead of a denial, still stating that I am against this development. But the way the vote are tallied and everything, I have to make a motion to approve. So I want to amend my motion to an approval.
Okay, so those that seconded the motion would, okay. You seconded there? Okay, all right, you willing to change it to an approval?
Yes, I'm gonna go ahead and change it to
Okay.
an approval motion, and I just see 110 units. That's like 13 units per acre, like it's crazy.
Okay.
Crazy
All
amount.
right. So the motion that's on the floor is to approve with a second, this particular, transaction. No one else is in the queue, so please vote.
I believe we're missing one vote.
Who's missing?
Yeah, we are. I'm not quite sure.
So if you did not want to recommend a zoning change, then you can vote nay. Or if you wanted to recommend a zoning change to the full council, you can vote yea.
Motion to approve fails.
Okay. All right. So that one's out. Thank y'all for working with us on this. All right, we go to item 6. The case is ZC 83-07-076A, major amendment to the PUD Plan Unit Development Overlay. Location, subdivisions located on the south side of Louisiana Highway 433, west of US Highway 90, and north of Lake Pontchartrain, Slidell, Ward 8, District 13. It's 187.028 acres. Petitioner's Paul Marone. Owner is the succession of Fred Segur Jr., Council District 13. Staff?
The subject property is in the Wrigley's Estates PUD, which was approved in 1983. The PUD plan was amended in 2022 to alter the single-family home sites, decreasing the average lot size by 10 square feet and adding 24 new single-family lots, as well as adding green space. The current request is to add a gated motor coach resort as a permitted use, which would apply to the eastern half of the PUD, being parcels P5, P6, P7, P8, P9, P10, P11, and Marina Basin. We should give you a larger ledger sheet which shows all this in detail. We also provided you with a set of guidelines that the applicant gave us, but we summarized those in your staff report, and they are as follows. Permitted uses would be allowable uses including motor coaches and coach houses, others uses subordinate to motor coach resort uses including offices, fuel docks, service facilities, public restrooms, showers, rec facilities, and amenities. The size of motor coach sites, which would have frontage on a canal and the property across the canal, is limited to single-family residential uses. And those single-family uses have to be required to have a coach house. The typical motor coach site has a minimum size requirement of 3,600 square feet, and each site must have parking for the motor coach and one other vehicle. The allowable density recommended by the developer is no greater than 7 sites per acre. A minimum buffer area of 30 feet must be imposed around the perimeter of the resort and must be planted to provide a 70% screening. And the motor coach resort is proposed a required potable water supply and central sewage disposable station requirement. Electrical utilities, including a pedestal provided, at least a 50 amp electric connection is required at each site, and the resort must be lit at all times. If the zoning commission approves the request, it shall be subject to providing a master plan showing the subject parcel's location, existing streets, buildings, water courses, and easements, acreage of each proposed use, the access and traffic flow, and tabulations of gross acreage in the development. It must also comply with the major subdivision standards set forth in Chapter 125 and eventually be heard before you by the Planning Commission.
Thank you. Mr. Marone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the Commission, Paul Marone again, this time on behalf of Mr. Segura, who is the independent executive, the succession of Mr. Segura, and the owner of the property. This PUD was originally approved back in 1983. Phases 1 and 2 were constructed and built out many years ago. The remaining phases are undeveloped or have been undeveloped until recently. Phase 3A1 and some of the other portions are currently under construction, and we have some of the canals throughout the property pursuant to the plan have been built. Obviously, though, much has changed since 1983. And so as a result, we have undertaken over the years to come back in and to request amendments to the PUD to try to reflect those changes, to try to enhance the PUD, to make it better, to make it more current, and to try to capture what we believe that the market wants. And this request is no different than that. That's what brings us here this evening. What is unique about this request, and I want to point it out at the beginning, is we're not proposing to get rid of anything that's currently in the PUD. The PUD and the layout is going to stay the same. The permitted uses that are allowed in the PUD are going to still be there. All we are asking to do is to add a permitted use to one portion of the PUD property. And that's important as well. What portion am I talking about? We are only talking about the far eastern 50 acres. So if you have the PUD plan in front of you, it is the far eastern edge. It is where there is currently zoned for marina commercial, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a moment, and higher density resort residential. So all of the uses that are currently permitted in that area, and on the PUD plan in front of you, it's parcels P5 through P11, will remain. We're just asking to add one more permitted use, which is a motor coach resort. And I'll talk in a little bit more detail about that. But first, I want to point out that the area of the PUD that is subject to this request, which is the marina commercial area, is already zoned and permits a marina, restaurants, retail, and other uses that would be typical sort of in a highway commercial zoning. This was the commercial end of the development. And all of the property east of that, for about a mile, is still owned by my client. So any concern that we are proposing to put this new permitted use on the doorstep or next door to existing single-family residents, it would be inaccurate, because we're about a mile away, and all of the property between there and here is owned by my client and remains residential. We are not proposing to change that in any way. So this site is tucked at the far eastern end. Now, the motor coach resort, what are we talking about? First and foremost, we are not talking about a campground. There is nothing wrong with the old KOAs that many of us went to in the 1970s and 80s and even 90s. Nothing wrong at all, but that's not what we're proposing here. We are not proposing a campground. We have submitted very detailed regulations of what would govern this particular property. Those regulations really were, we looked at what the parish had for this type of use. We looked at the type of facility that we wanted to have and similar facilities around, and we took the base the parish had and we enhanced that. We brought the standard and the quality up a little higher. So the minimum standards that we are proposing are above what would typically be the minimum standards for this type of a development. For example, we require all the motor coaches to be Class A or Super C and can be no more than 15 years old. We're requiring that it be a gated facility. We're requiring that 25% of the park's area remain green space. We're requiring a 30-foot buffer around the perimeter, which must be landscaped to achieve 70% visual screen. We are requiring that if there is any landing or site where you could have an RV, is across the canal from the residential that is to our east, that that site must have a coach house. The reason for that is that even though it is my client that owns the property across that canal, one day it will be residential. And we want to have a situation where you have a residential home that is essentially looking at a residential home. And we've mandated that in our restriction and within our guidelines. Also, we have a requirement that no site can be any closer than 150 feet from any adjacent residence. So nothing along the borders whatsoever. As far as the amenity package, think of what you would find in a high-end resort. Forget the motor coach for a minute. If you go to a high-end resort, what would you find? You'd find swimming pools, you'd find lazy rivers, you'd find tennis and pickleball courts, boat docks, event centers, meeting rooms, trails, golf cart and bike paths. All of those amenities you would have in this development. I've given you a package. The first page shows what I told you a moment ago, that where we're proposing to allow this as a permitted use is a mile away from the existing homes. And everything in between it is owned by my client. The other pictures you will see are of a development that is in Orange Beach, Alabama. And is it exactly going to be exactly like that? No. But that is a model that we are going by in trying to bring this concept to the area. Will there be some variations that are different because of where this is located? Well, certainly, there will be. Yes, we don't have the beach, but we do have other things like the availability for fishing, sportsman activities, getting into the Wrigley's, things of that nature. So we'll have those type of things here. But what I wanted to demonstrate to you is the quality. It is not just a campground. It is something much more than that. The staff has suggested that for site plan approval, that we should come back to the Planning Commission, to you sitting as the Planning Commission. We have no objection to that recommendation in the staff comments. That makes sense, and so if you were to decide that this should be or could be a permitted use, and if that were part of the motion for consideration, we would have no objection to it whatsoever. Our effort with this is to further enhance the quality of the project. Our desire is to bring a first-class use to the eastern end of this property, and to provide something that's compatible and that is a benefit. And we believe that this is. 10 years ago, I didn't really even have in my sights a motor coach resort. Well, there's some in Robert. We see them all over. They're a bit of a phenomenon, but they are a growing phenomenon. And the ones that we have looked at that are high quality and top class, we believe can be a real asset to this area. And we think we have some of the natural characteristics with the location to the Wrigley's that can benefit that. So we respectfully request your approval. Again, only to add the permitted use. Everything else with the PUD remains the same. Doesn't mean that we're going to go out and build it. It just means that in addition to all of those other uses that are currently permitted in the marina commercial section, this would be another item. And we believe it's compatible with those other items, and its location is appropriately insulated. So thank you for your consideration. We hope that you will consider granting the major amendment so that we can bring this amenity to the area. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Anyone in the audience wish to speak either for or against on this?
Well, I'll speak against it.
Come to the mic.
You know, I live in Wrigley's Estates. My name's Mike Boucher. I've been there for about 8 or 10 years. Went through a few hurricanes up in there. And, I'm not totally against what he's trying to do. I guess my questions are, what assurances are we going to have in the event of a hurricane, and what's going to be the quality of the motor coach structures that will be constructed there, that they won't be washed into our property when an incoming tidal surge comes through? Okay, I've actually stayed there for 3 hurricanes, and water coming in and water going out is quite intense. So, you know, I know they're comparing this to some other places, Perdido Key. I've spent a fair amount of time in Perdido Key. I can't for the world see why anybody would come in a $350,000, $400,000, $500,000 motor coach. Okay, we have a lot of mosquitoes, a lot of gnats, a lot of sand flies. It takes kind of a different kind of person to live out there. And to go sit around a swimming pool or to, you know, sit around a campfire certain times a year, not gonna happen. I pretty much grew up in the swamp, okay? I'm used to it, don't really bother me. Okay, I like it out there. I do feel, and I've been knowing the Segura family all my life. I'm from St. Bernard Parish, kind of washed to the North Shore after Katrina, and settled in Wrigley's Estates because I like living next to the water, and I'm willing to take the chance to, you know, possibly lose everything for a hurricane. I had a piece of property in Lower St. Bernard Parish. My family had 3 or 4 generations. We had a house there. And I had a friend of the family, had a marina, and was losing his lease. And he came to my family and asked us if we would sign a paper giving him the ability to build the marina next to my family's house. Well, we did, because I felt like, you know, my grandparents weren't living there anymore. It was more of a camp. Well, in addition to what we got in the marina, we had 50 to 60 camper trailers ended up behind the family house, and every time we got a hurricane, people were sick of their camper trailers. Guess who got them? We did. They washed into our property, they washed into our boat sheds, and the kicker about it was when we contacted the people that owned the camper trailers, they said, well, we don't own them anymore. The insurance company paid us for a new one. And, you know, so we called the insurance company, and the insurance company said, well, we don't have time to go ahead and remove them from the property. So my concern with this, and again, I'm somebody that doesn't really believe government has the right to tell you what you can do with your property, with the exception of if it's going to affect somebody else's property. And, you know, I don't generally go to any homeowners association meetings. I do attend a lot of zoning meetings because I got property in several different parishes and stuff. And this is one thing that really kind of made me start thinking, is this going to be a problem that I've seen once before, okay? And if the motor coach thing does fail, then or are they still going to have the approval to put camper trailers? So I'd have to know for sure that if the motor coach thing would fail, that the next step wouldn't be what I would call a redneck Riviera. And I got nothing against people that like camper trailers and go fishing and all that stuff. I grew up fishing. I grew up with, you know, people that can't afford luxury motor coaches. But I just can't see a luxury motor coach facility with all the amenities that they're going to promise, like Perdido Key, on the east side of Wrigley's Estates. And, you know, maybe you can tell me if this project fails, will they be able to put a camper trailer site there rather than a motor coach site? And I know, you know, I've heard numbers that Mr. Segura has the property sold for $10 million, and it's all based on the fact that he's got to get this zoning redone. So, you know, and I got it from a pretty reliable source. And again, I'm not totally against it, but I'm really worried about it, to be honest with you. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Please fill out a speaker card.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Paul, you got a rebuttal?
Is there anybody else that wants to talk?
Pardon?
Is there anybody else that wants to talk?
No.
Thank you. Just a few comments. I mean, let's start with the structures and washing into their property. I urge you to look at the first item on the package. It is a mile from where this would be permitted to where the existing residents are. Is it possible that a storm could come in, could take some debris out, that could then come back around and end up over there? I guess that's possible. That's possible. But it is just as possible that it could end up in past Christiane or in the east, New Orleans East. I mean, respectfully, we're not putting it next door. So the idea that we're going to have debris that is going to wash into the homes a mile away, I don't think is a real concern. But let me also point out that any structures built here, right, have to be built in accordance with the codes of St. Tammany Parish. So we're not talking about a shanty town. I mean, we're not talking about putting, shacks up there that would be that susceptible. I mean, that's not what we're talking about. And so while we're on that subject, let's talk about the camper trailers. I tried to speak in some detail about what we're doing and that we are not a camper trailer facility. And so the concern is if the motor coach fails, can they do the camper trailers? No. That's all what we are saying in those detailed restrictions is all you can do with regards to this. If you don't like that, and I'm not you, of course, but I'm saying if you, Mr. Developer, who wants to buy it and build it, doesn't want to do what we have here, then you can't do it. It's not permitted. The only thing that I'm asking you to permit is what is before you, which is a very high quality development. The kind of development that dictates the type of motor coaches that go in there. And I would tell you that the type of motor coaches that meet the requirements that I just gave you are driving out of here if there's a storm coming. If somebody wants to leave a $250,000 and up motor coach, I guess they could do that, but the likelihood of that is not great. I understand the concern about the camper trailers, right? But remember, who is the most affected by this if it is approved? That man right there. That mile, he owns that. He's got a major, major investment there. So he would not do anything here because he's the first person affected by something of low quality. So I understand the concerns, but I believe that we have done what we need to do to make sure that if you're going to develop what we are proposing, it's got to be here. And if it doesn't work, that doesn't say, okay, well, I gave it a try. Now I can do the old KOA. No, that's not permitted. It's only one quality. It's here and up. So there needn't be a concern that something low quality goes in there because that's built in the regulations. These minimum standards are high standards. And that was done with a purpose. I understand that Mr. Boucher doesn't see necessarily the vision, and I can respect that. I understand that. But quite frankly, some of the residents that are there, they have pools. There are pools all along the coast down there. This is a unique spot. If you approve this, does it mean that there's going to be a motor coach resort out there tomorrow? No, it may never be that. Just like there may never be any of the other permitted uses that are out there. But it gives an opportunity for something very high-end and very nice. And I think that's an opportunity that should be afforded. I don't see the downside to it. I think if somebody has the vision, there are so many things that I've seen over the years that I've thought, that is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. That will never work. Only to watch a guy laugh all the way to the bank and make $1 gazillion off of it. Please let us have this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. You have any rebuttal comments?
I guess from his, you know, his statement about would I think that material from this development would go a mile? We had in Lake Pontchartrain oyster boats and trawl boats from Hopedale, okay, that drifted into Lake Pontchartrain. So it's going to go way beyond that, okay? What you had there will go into Lakeshore Estates. It'll go into Treasure Island. You know, the thing that really kind of blew the walls out in most of the lower parts of the houses in Wrigley's Estates for Katrina was what came back out after the water pushed up into Lake Pontchartrain, and it was Treasure Isle because all the houses were built 4 feet off the ground. So we kind of eliminated that problem with new construction codes and were able to have breakaway walls at the lower part of our houses out there. And I just don't understand what they're going to do when they're talking about building motor coach houses, okay, that are going to be on the ground. Are they going to have concrete columns that will be allowed to have breakaway walls to blow out? You know, and from the standpoint of, will somebody come get their motorhome? I know someone that bought a motorhome after Katrina, okay, paid more than $350,000 for it, couldn't sell it. So he drove it to Delacroix Island for the next hurricane so it would flood so the insurance company would pay him for it. Okay, and I know that for a fact. So, and again, my biggest concern is, okay, if they develop this into this luxury motor coach facility, okay, if that doesn't develop into that, they still got the zoning changed to camper trailers. So, you know, I just don't think this is a good application in a V zone where like I said, I've been through 3 small hurricanes out there, stayed in the house, watched the water come in, watched the water go out, and it's pretty intense, and we haven't seen another Katrina-like event. So what we built out there now may be affected by what they build over there, or maybe not build. But you know, the more zonings and again, I know they're on the very east side, okay, which I can appreciate that, but are they going to develop this and then decide to go try to get something else changed a little closer and a little closer and a little closer? You know, that's all I got to say about it. And again, this is coming from somebody that don't really believe government should have the right to tell people what they can do with their property, so it's not, unless it affects somebody directly. I think this is going to affect us directly, and I think it's going to come back. If it does get developed, it's going to come back, and you know, I'm going to come back and tell y'all I told you so. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm going to close it to the public and bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Archamont.
Yeah, I do see the concerns of what he's talking about. I do, but I would actually make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Archamont. Commissioner Gaines.
I have questions for Mr. Marone. So I understand the motor coaches and disregarding any malicious intent, I think that people would move their motor coaches away from a storm. But I understand the gentleman's concern about the other structures that would be there. So I am intimately familiar with Wrigley's Estates. I've done a lot of projects in there, drove a lot of pylons for homes. What are the structures? How are they going to be built to accommodate the motor homes? And, you know, just to address some of the concerns, because in Wrigley's Estates, every single home is on pylons. It's elevated foundations. Yeah. So I don't think the intent is to put I guess, what are they going to be, cabins, or what kind of structures are going to be, adjacent for these motorhomes?
So a coach house is kind of what we're talking about.
Okay.
But absolutely they would be raised.
So they're all going to be on pylons?
Absolutely. And so let's talk about that. What would that look like?
Yeah.
So rather than
the pictures you had were a little
confusing.
I know,
a little confusing in that regard.
It's not the same thing.
It's not the same thing, because they didn't have to raise it.
Right.
So think of it this way. I mean, we've got to raise those structures to meet the base flood elevation. So we're going to park the mobile home on the motor coach underneath.
Okay, that was one question. So
Yes.
one of the other questions is, according to your plan here, even though the existing residents are a mile away, it does look like you plan to develop the space in between the existing residents and so what, obviously, I don't think that staff would, like a wall or something like that in between this structure and the proposed new residents, would that be in the planning commission, or is that taken care of in this,
So if I
think it's planning. Yeah.
Two things. One, there's going to be canals so you'll have a canal of about 150 feet that will be between this property and any of the residential at a minimum.
Yeah, it's not really that easy to see. Or
Yeah, it's a little hard to see.
Yeah.
But that's so there would be canals that would be between these uses and those residential uses.
Are you going to be accessing this particular use? Is it going to be accessed from 433 or from 90?
433. 433. Yes.
But it's not. Is it going to be? You won't have to drive into the subdivision to get to it, though.
You
right?
will not.
Okay, that was my other
Yes,
question.
sir. Yes, sir.
I kind of like this plan. I mean, given the fact I was very concerned about the debris field and everything that could result from this, just because knowing that all the other houses in the area are on elevated foundations. But I think you addressed a lot of those concerns. I'll second this proposal.
Okay. You finished, John? Yes. Commissioner Narcisse.
My question for this would be obviously the clientele is high end and all of that good stuff. Is it going to be more permanent residents or short-term rental type things? Like, is it a management company that's going to oversee the whole thing, or is it going to be like residents owning it and to maintaining the properties? How does that look like? Because I'm very intrigued by this model.
So that's a very good question. And there are two models that you can have there. You can have the model that says, look, all of these are rentals. And we built in here that they can all be rentals, but we have a time frame. In other words, you can't live here forever, right? I mean, you can't live here more than a certain period of time within a 12-month period, okay? Because what we don't want to have is we want it to stay high end, and we want to make sure that is protected. There is also a model where the sites can be purchased. In the pictures that you see, that Orange Beach model, those sites can be purchased. So I could go there, I could buy that site, and then that would be my site. I can use it, and then I can rent it out when I'm not there. So
like a timeshare.
Kind of like a timeshare where I own it, but look, I'm only going to be down there in the summer months, for example. So there's snowbirds that want it in the winter months. I put it up for rent, and then there is a management company that rents that. So both of those are possibilities. Where that would get fleshed out, and it kind of goes back to Mr. Gaines' question that I didn't answer a minute ago, and I apologize. But where that would get fleshed out, remember, there is built into the guidelines that if somebody wants to do that, they've got to create a site plan, and then they've got to come back before you as the planning commission. It's at that point that your ultimate question is answered. Are these just for rent units, or are we asking you to allow us to create sites that we're able to sell? Okay. So it's a long-winded answer that kind of said you could do it either way.
And I think the question here is, do we allow it to be permitted, not even if it's allowed to be done? I'm with you guys. I don't see a reason. After I finish here, I'll recognize that. But like I said, I don't see a reason why not to let it be permitted to be even discussed. So I that's where I'm at on that. And then I'll recognize Mr. Boucher.
I guess one question I got, well, I got plenty of questions, but what's going to be what is property tax going to be based on? Because we pay a fortune in property tax out there. Okay,
Well,
so
that's something that's beyond this commission.
Okay, well, I guess my question is, would this go to developed or undeveloped property? Okay, so there will be a tax,
You think the state's not gonna get theirs wrong?
well, no, you know what, I just want to know that there's going to be a tax benefit to St. Tammany Parish. Okay, the other thing is are they going to be required to put put their own sewage and water in? Because we really got
Yes,
a pitiful water and sewage system out there right now. So, okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Commissioner Truxillo.
This is, well, I had 3 questions, but my other commissioners asked the other 2 questions I wanted to ask. This is for staff. With the restriction that the landowner is putting on the land on the high-level camper, I mean, RVs, would campers be allowed if someone wanted to sneak one in? And who would control that?
Well, for the most part, those covenants are very strict and particular, and in part of those covenants in those types of subdivisions is that they have strict requirements before you can come in with your motor coach, and as it's stated, it's for motor coach, not for travel trailers. So before you can rent or lease your site, there's going to be some homework that needs to be done. It's not going to allow any type of travel trailers. It says it's for motor coach. It's going to require motor coach only.
Okay, Paul? Right, I understand that. Obviously, you're going to have a management company over there. I guess they're going to enforce the no camper rule.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
That's all I want to know. Thank you.
Yes.
All right. The board is clear. I've got one question for you, Paul. And it really does and does not have this site. There's a partial D that's not in the site, but it's right above.
I think I know what you're talking about. Yes.
Any idea what, is it developed by somebody already?
It
or?
is. It is not developed, and it is not part of the PUD.
Okay, all right. So it'll just stay vacant
Yes.
lot till somebody buys it.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, we've had a good discussion. We've got a lot of information. Please vote.
Mr. Arsaman, could you clarify what your motion was? Was it to approve or deny?
Approve.
To approve, okay. Thank you.
And second.
Missing, all right. Motion to approve carries.
Thank y'all. We learned a little bit tonight too. All right, we go to item 7, which is case 2024-3765-ZC. Existing zoning is A1 Suburban District and RO Rural Overlay. Proposed zoning is A1 Suburban District, RO Rural Overlay, and MHO Manufactured Housing Overlay. Location, parcel located on the west side of Isabel Swamp Road, north of Louisiana Highway 40, Bush, Ward 2, District 6. It's 1 acre. The petitioner is David and Tracy Whitaker, and the owner is David and Tracy Whitaker. Council District 6. Staff?
The subject property is currently undeveloped and sits across Isabel Swamp Road from a portion of property, a large portion of property that was rezoned during the comprehensive rezoning effort in 2009 and 2010 that is zoned MHO, manufactured housing. The property is also just north of another subject property that was rezoned to accommodate the requested manufactured housing overlay in 2014, and directly north of a parcel that has a manufactured home but is not zoned for manufactured homes and therefore is a legal non-conforming use. If approved, the applicant could apply for building permits to place a manufactured home on the site.
All right. Are the Whitakers here? Good evening. You got to miss all the fun.
No, I was watching on the way up.
Good evening to you.
Good evening. How are you doing?
I'm fine.
Yeah.
You have some additional comments that you'd like to add to the staff report?
No, sir. We originally purchased the land and with all intent of putting a mobile home on it. We just weren't aware that it wasn't a mobile home. Didn't have a mobile home overlay on it. The property to the left of us and the property to the right of us both have mobile homes on them, and there was previously a mobile home on the property. So all we're doing is asking for the mobile home overlay to put a new mobile home on the site.
Okay, all right. I'm guessing that you're going to have to elevate that since it's on the swamp road. I've
Actually,
never
the
been
road
on
we're
the
on
Isabel
is one of
Swamp
the
Road, but I
higher
know there's a lot of
elevations.
truck traffic on it, though.
Yeah. When the bridge was down, there was. Now that the bridge on 16's back open, there's not too much truck traffic through there.
Okay, all right. All right, thank you. Your folks with you want to comment? Okay. All right, well, I'm going to close it to the public and bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Gaines.
Make a motion to approve. I just have one question. When are they going to pave the rest of that road? That's all. I make a motion to approve.
Okay, we need a second. Commissioner Narcisse.
I'll second.
Okay, so we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Motion to approve carries.
All right,
Thank you for your time.
good deal. All right, the next two items were both postponed. That's item 8 and 9 on page 3 of the agenda, so.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. You almost missed
Feels like it's the principal's office.
I know that I already have all of the oaths of office packets from the new members, but for those of you that were reappointed, Katrina Buckley, the clerk for the council office, should have sent you an email with the packet. You can either email her back and make arrangements to go meet her to fill out that paperwork, and she'll get it printed for you, or if you're doing it at home, you need to print everything out. You're gonna have one of the contact information form that goes back to Katrina. You're gonna have 3 affidavits of acknowledgement of the boards and commission manual. Katrina needs one, Helen needs one, and you can keep one. And then you're gonna need 5 copies of your oaths of office. Katrina needs 3. One has to go to the Secretary of State, one has to go to the Clerk of Court. The council office keeps one. Helen needs one for the Planning and Zoning Commission files, and then you can keep one. So 5 oaths of office, 3 affidavits
Send me an
regarding the boards and
email.
commissions manual, and 1 information sheet needs to go back to Katrina.
Send me an email.
That's a lot of talking all at once. Yes, you can bring it next week.
All of that you just said is gonna be in the email?
All that's in the email.
You can watch the video. Emily, does that apply to Reading? I've already done that.
He's a, yes, I think you've already completed everything. I think it's only the reappointed members that need completed.
Yeah, I don't think all that was in the
You
package
should have
you sent.
received it. Mr. Troncoso, did you receive it?
And Dave, I checked on what she sent you and it's all in there.
Okay. All right. Good deal. Thank y'all for the, yes,
No, it was Friday of last week. It came from Katrina. Did any one of you did not receive their packet?
Congratulations on being the chair again.
uh-huh.
Huh?
Do what?
I said congratulations
Oh,
on being the
thank you.
chair again.
Thank you.
Congratulations.